forgotten orphanage, Black Hollow was a town that lived on the edges of maps and mines. Surrounded by ancient, brooding woods, its existence seemed more like a whispered legend than reality. Time had not been kind to the town, and most of its buildings sagged under the weight of neglect and decay. But none were as infamous as Haven's Rest, the abandoned orphanage at the town's center. Closed for decades, its story had become a cautionary tale, shrouded in ghostly whispers. They said that long after its doors had been shut, the sounds of children could still be heard, laughter that wasn't quite joyful, sobbing that wasn't entirely human, and hurried footsteps echoing through its hollow halls. Locals avoided it, warning that those who ventured inside never came back the same, if they returned at all. Amelia, a bold and ambitious freelance photographer, found herself drawn to Black Hollow despite the warnings. Known for capturing haunting, desolate places, she felt compelled to add Haven's Rest to her portfolio. Ghost stories didn't scare her, they intrigued her. Armed with her camera, a sturdy flashlight, and a fierce determination, she arrived on a cold, misty autumn evening, ready to face whatever secrets the orphanage might hold. The orphanage loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged and foreboding against the dim light of the setting sun. Ivy crawled hungrily up its crumbling stone walls, and shattered windows stared out like empty, accusing eyes. The wrought iron gate groaned as Amelia pushed it open, the sound slicing through the silence of the evening. Her first steps onto the orphanage grounds felt heavy, as though the earth itself resisted her presence. At the front door, a faded wooden sign hung precariously from rusted chains. The words, "All are welcome," were scrawled in peeling paint. Amelia hesitated. The phrase felt inviting and ominous all at once, but she shook off the unease and stepped inside. The air inside was suffocatingly stale, thick with the scent of mildew and decay. Dust hung in the air like a fine mist, dancing in the beam of her flashlight. As she moved further in, the light revealed peeling wallpaper and messages scratched into the walls. "Help us. They never leave." And most chilling of all, "Do you hear the singing?" Ignoring the shiver running down her spine, Amelia raised her camera and began to capture the eerie beauty of the place. The lens drank in the overturned furniture, the broken toys, and the faded portraits of children whose eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. Then she heard it, a faint, distant giggle. She froze, her flashlight darting across the room. It was probably just the wind, she told herself, but her grip on the flashlight tightened. The giggle came again, closer this time. It led her to what once must have been a playroom. The space was filled with rusted swings and toppled shelves. A rocking horse sat in one corner, its seat cracked and weathered. To her horror, it began to sway gently back and forth, though no breeze stirred the air. Amelia's camera clicked almost involuntarily as she captured the unsettling scene. Her gaze shifted to the wall, where a large mural depicted children playing in a sunlit meadow. Their painted faces were uncannily lifelike, their eyes bright and eager, but something about their smiles felt wrong, too wide, too sharp. In the corner of the room, her flashlight caught something small and pale, a doll. Its porcelain face was cracked, and one of its eyes was missing. She knelt to take a closer look, snapping a few photos. Just as she leaned in, the doll's head twitched ever so slightly, turning toward her. Amelia stumbled back, her heart pounding. A soft giggle echoed from behind her, but when she spun around, the room was empty. When she looked back at the doll, it was gone. Her breathing quickened. "This place is playing tricks on me," she whispered, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. As she moved deeper into the orphanage, the giggles turned into whispers. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, low and distorted, as if spoken underwater. The words were garbled, but one phrase cut through clearly: "Stay with us." She entered what had once been a dining hall. Long wooden tables stretched across the room, now covered in thick layers of dust and cobwebs. At the head of the room was a massive fireplace, and above it hung a portrait of a stern-looking woman. The plaque beneath it read, "Miss Eliza Thornwood, Matron of Haven's Rest." Amelia stared at the painting. The woman's eyes seemed to pierce through her, cold and unforgiving. As the seconds passed, they seemed to move, tracking her every step. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, rising to an unbearable crescendo. "Leave," they screamed. The The room grew icy, her flashlight flickered and then went out, plunging her into suffocating darkness. Panicking, she fumbled for her spare battery. As she worked, she felt it. Small, cold fingers wrapping around her wrist. "Come play with us," a child's voice whispered, so close it seemed to brush against her ear. Amelia screamed, dropping the flashlight. She scrambled to retrieve it, and when the beam returned, the room was empty. But the dusty floor was now marked with tiny footprints, leading out the door. Compelled by a force she couldn't understand, Amelia followed the footprints. They led her to a heavy wooden door she hadn't noticed before. It creaked open to reveal a staircase spiraling into the depths of the orphanage. The air grew colder with each step she descended, and the whispers transformed into soft cries, echoing off the damp stone walls. At the bottom, she found herself in a vast basement. Rows of tiny rusted beds filled the space, each with a chain bolted to its frame. The floor was strewn with broken toys, faded photographs, and bones, too small to belong to adults. In the center of the room stood a group of children. Their skin was pale, their eyes hollow and black. They turned to Amelia in unison, their heads tilting unnaturally. "You shouldn't be here," one of them said, its voice layered with something ancient and malevolent. Amelia backed away, but the children advanced, their movements jerky and inhuman. "We've been waiting for someone to play with us," another said, its grin stretching impossibly wide. She turned to run, but the staircase had vanished. The walls seemed to close in, and the cries of the children grew louder, more anguished. In her panic, she tripped, her camera skidding across the floor. As she reached for it, a small hand grabbed her ankle, its grip icy and unyielding. "Stay with us," the voice hissed. Amelia's screams echoed through the orphanage, blending with the haunting laughter of the children. Weeks later, hikers found her camera near the edge of the woods. The photos inside told a chilling story. Images of the orphanage's eerie rooms, the doll, the mural, and finally, the children in the basement. But the last photo was the most disturbing. A blurry shot of Amelia standing among the children, her face pale, her eyes hollow, and her mouth curled into a twisted, unnatural smile. To this day, Haven's Rest stands silent, but at night, locals swear they hear whispers and laughter drifting from its depths, calling out to anyone who dares to listen.